Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it. You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get straight to this intro. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I stay kicking. And I appreciate the support, man. I'm very humbled by it. So are you guys ready for another reaction video? Another reaction. This time, this video was by a convict's perspective. Do you guys remember them? Do you remember a convict's perspective? One of the founding fathers of this YouTube gang genre, prison genre, right? They were one of the first channels to come up and to really put out there a lot of information concerning prison, politics, things of that nature, right? There's an individual that has passed away over the weekend, Chopo de Watson, right? Chopo de Watson is very notoriously known and stands out amongst men because he was one of the very few or only black familianos, meaning he was part of an organization, a prison organization, allegedly, right? And was very well respected individual. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I condone or glorify all the street stuff or the gang stuff. Of course, we know at this point, man, that's not what I'm in it for. But I thought in memory of him and, the struggle that he lived for, because regardless of if you like gang members or you don't, there's a mindset that goes into it. There's a struggle and a strive behind what they do, right? And what makes you or me or anyone else, better than anyone else because of what they do. If someone has a true belief system and they believe in something and they're willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, whether it be their freedom or their life behind it, hey, man, I commend them for at least being all in and being cut from that cloth and being about their business and standing by what they believe. Chopo from Watson was one of them guys. Now, there's a story circulating social media right now that he passed away due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And what it's over, I'm not going to speak on because there's a lot of people putting the full story out there saying it's over this or over that. I don't know, man. All I know is this man has succumbed to a gunshot wound. He has passed away, unfortunately, for his family, for his friends, for his group. He's going to definitely be missed. And that loss is a big one. But he was very known because he was one of the very few and only black members of that group. There's a lot of brothers that grow up in the community. I have a homeboy from my neighborhood. He grew up around all Mexicans, the raza, norteños. And that's what he fell into. That's what he became. And it wasn't a black and brown thing. It was just a belief thing, right? He believed in the cause. He believed in, what the norteños were striving for, the fight for social status of equality, the fight against oppression, the fight to secure their homelands. Like, these were the things that he truly believed in. And regardless of his color, he was embraced. He was shown love just like any other homeboy. And Chopo grew up the same way. It was kind of one of them dudes. But I ran across an old convict's perspective video that I wanted to react to, and it's stories being told by Flaco from a convict's perspective and his interaction with Chopo. So let's get into that.
Now, this was probably around late 90s. I was a first termer, ended up in the hole for melee. We ended up getting off with the Native Americans, right? Now, when I'm in the hole, I got Boy from Hollister above me, Chili Willie from South City.
I know Boy from Hollister. That was a good homie right there.
Pee Wee from Gilroy was there. Ray Garcia, Goose. All these cats had been there, right? Mousy from fucking Daly City.
Shit, I could tell you stories about me and Mousy, man. One time, I ain't even gonna lie, man. Me and Mousy had to wiggle to that casino out there in what's it called? The one out, the ghetto ass one out there. Fucking damn, I forget the name of that casino, man. It's out there by Vallejo. There's a casino out there, man. It's not the real nice one over there by fucking Santa Rosa. It's the one over there, the ghetto ass motherfucker, man. I don't know if it's in San something, right? But it's It's a ghetto ass casino. We ended up going there one night. I hit like a motherfucker too, man. Me and Mousy were chilling. Mousy's a good brother right there. That's a good, solid dude right there. Mousy from Daly City. Hey, if anyone knows that casino, tell me. It's over there by Vallejo, the closest one to it. It's the ghetto one where everyone's robbing you in the parking lot.
Midget from Soho, Sykes from Goshen.
I know Sykes from Goshen too, man. We were in Nellis together, California Youth Authority, Tracy as well, and K Wing. Sykes from Goshen, solid, solid, solid person, man. Good, good heart too.
A lot of brothers, man, a lot of brothers from everywhere, right? And I'm a first termer, so I'm learning, right? And so when I first get there, my hands all messed up, right? Because I got Sergeant Barker, was a sergeant now, but CO Barker at the time. I wouldn't stop fighting, so they ended up shooting off the block gun and they ended up hitting me with a fucking baton. So I couldn't write.
How the fuck they shoot off the black gun and then they hit you with the baton? Bob also, I'm a second candidate for Bob also of the week. Flocks, right? You don't get shot with the motherfucking black gun and it hits you with the baton. They came and hit you with the baton, but that the black gun ain't shooting batons; it's shooting rubber bullets or these wooden pegs. But I know what he meant.
And I was telling the homeboys that, right? So I had a hard time doing my NA screening process. And I'm new, so this is all fucking new to me. Fishing, everything, right? So the first day we go to yard, I go there shirt off, and like it's an intimidating place, man. Going to the 6 yard back in the days when it was on the death row side, it was
I've heard, man. I've heard the 6 yard right there in San Quentin, which is at Seg, the hole, right? Very intimidating for Norteños. That was like a stronghold. So the who's who of who the fuck are they, right, was there. And every story that I've heard, there's either been horror stories or like embracement stories. You'll notice like a lot of songs, like songs by that rapper Big Rome, who did a lot of time. Other guys, they always reference or mention the 6 yard in San Quentin because that's a notorious stronghold for the Norteños.
just something totally different. You cannot explain it. You're going right by all the death row yards, and they're out there fucking red rags, blue rags, fucking straight look old school convicts, right? And then you approach the 6 yard, there's about 50, 60 motherfuckers on that yard, right? About 45, 50 of them are last at about 10, 15 blacks. And everybody's just posted up. And so
So what they had is an integrated yards in San Quentin. They had the Northerners functioning alongside with the blacks, right? And so, man, 50, 60 people on a whole yard, that's a lot of dudes, a lot of heads, man. Anything could pop off. These are all guys that are in there for one reason or another. They're not in there for being nice guys, okay? You don't go to prison for being a nice guy, and then you definitely don't go to the hole within the prison for being a nicer guy, right? So this is the who's who when you're in the hole.
the first day we get out there, and it's a new arrival day. And, they're talking to us and they're screening us out. We're all first termers there, okay, because we had just got off. And I noticed this one individual, he he looks like he has braids like Julio, right? But I notice he's always with a homeboy. Him and Pee Wee from Gilroy and Goose from San Jose were always discussing things, right? Now at that time, Pee Wee was what you would consider a very high ranking NR member. Okay. That's Greg Lopez. So they were the ones that would come and talk to us and whatnot. And Chopo would chime in on the education stuff, right, over the next couple of weeks. Now, I started looking at him. I'm like, man, he doesn't look like the traditionally homeboy. And so I'm thinking he's a
That's why you can never judge a book on its cover. People, they think Norteño or Southsider and they think big mustache, bald head, tattoos all over the neck and face. And I've always said, man, most of the guys that are with the business and that are low key, the ones to watch out for are the ones that are laid back that you wouldn't even expect to look like that. They don't have this mold to fit of a traditional cholo or gang member. They could look totally different. They gotta have hairs and braids sticking up like Coolio, you know. And next thing you know, he's the one.
bro at first. But then I come to find out that he was actually a carnal, right? And see, Chopo, later on, as we found out later on, that Boxer was one of the ones that, was basically his teacher. MC pulled him. And I think he maybe had maybe a career at that time, maybe a year, 2 years in, right? And so, but the thing about Chopo is Chopo would take the time and effort and he would come in and join in on the collector groups. And to be honest with you, the way Chopo talked, his demeanor, even though he had a coolio looking braids, right? he was sharp, man. He knew.
See, there are guys, man, that embrace the education, right? See, that's a lot of people don't understand, and you'll hear a lot of the ex Norteños that are on here, or even the active ones. Not necessarily as much the active ones because they are too busy, arguing with the Southerners, right, over whatever. But you'll hear a lot of the dudes that tell these prison stories talk about when within the Norteño movement, education. And education is basically giving you the full rundown of how to secure yourself, how to maintain a yard, how to secure a yard, establish a yard, things that you need to understand and do to live and to gain social status of equality. Social status of equality meaning to get grab and get every incentive offered by CDCR that you're entitled to. So that way they don't, try to give one group more than the other. Like if you're entitled to it, if you got it coming, your spot on the yard, your space on the yard, then you're going to struggle and fight for that by any means, right? But the education is to allow you to understand why you're doing this. What's the reasoning behind everything? So them education groups and all that within the Norteño movement is so that way you just know what you're doing everything for. So there's a lot of dudes that will drop out later on and be like, "Oh, I didn't know, this, or I didn't know that." That's false. That's foolish, a foolish lie because you're educated. Everyone is, to a certain degree, depending upon who you are and your status. You're educated into understanding why the fuck you get off, why you are fighting the Southerners, why you are going to certain yards, what to do in them cases that you do go to a bad yard, right? These things you're already told. So when a dude uses it as an excuse, "Well, I didn't know better," you're lying.
Knew how to communicate with people. And the one thing I noticed is that he would talk about making sacrifices. And see, up until that point, what I used to think an NF member was supposed to look like was some OG that had all kinds of tattoos and a big bro shot. He didn't fit the typical stereotype of what I thought an NF member was supposed to look like. Because previously you had Silencio and Chente and all those cats that got indicted, and they all had that look. They had that what you would think of what a Familiano would look like. But Chopo would sit there and he'd take the time, what I'm saying, to interact with you. He would tell his own personal stories about making sacrifices. He would talk about how he was like a week to the past.
That's what you call a true and firm believer, right? He wanted to uplift the Norteño spirit, and instead of creating an atmosphere of violence and all the time you have to be this way or that way, he was letting people know that I'm just like you. I come from the same cloth, homie. I'm we are one rather than divided. And so you could tell by what Flaco was describing as his attitude towards Enners or Northerners, right? That he was willing to, let people know exactly how he came into being a part of the group and how he was furthering himself within the group, but not on the behalf of the other people, or at the benefit of other people. Excuse me, that's the word. That he was striving together. Canalismo is what it's called.
And he ended up catching a DA referral because he elected to stab somebody because he was asked to do it and he was willing to make that sacrifice. So when you heard the man talk, he talked in a way that demanded respect. Now Pee Wee was a bro that acted like a C. He was like a very harsh, very fucking direct with people, man. And then you also had Goose, who was the same way too, man. Like Goose would sit there and grill the whole fucking yard. IGI would be watching. He would not give a fuck that IGI was watching. That's just how Goose was. Chopo was a little bit more finesseful, and when I found out he was a C, it shocked me. Like, I never thought that there was going to be black NF members. I've heard of black Norteños, right? I actually met black Soldados later on, but I was still shocked at that time that, okay, he's actually made that full commitment as a Familiano. Some of you may be wondering, well, how does a black, kid get involved with Norteño gangs or become an NF member?
Well, it's all about, your geography, where you grow up, where you live. The inspiration behind it is usually goes back to the way you live. If your parents move in, if you're black and your parents move into an all Mexican neighborhood, more than likely those are going to be the people you go to school with, the people that are that you play with when you're a kid outside, you ride bikes with, you throw rocks with, spray paint with, you have fun with, right? Just the things that typical kids do, swimming, all that. And their idealisms, and you're a product of the barrio, starts to become your culture. It starts to ingrain itself in you. And that's how you become a Norteño. It's the same way if a Mexican went to a Crip neighborhood or a Blood neighborhood or all black neighborhood, they start to embrace them idealisms and that way of thinking. Ain't nothing wrong with it, man. People always judge people on color and ethnicity. And hey, look, man, you can be whoever you want to be. That's why when I see someone saying the N word and I know they grew up in Oakland, deep East Oakland, West Oakland with all the brothers, man, I understand. That comes second nature to them. But when I see dudes that are from fucking Merced on the west side that never grew up like that saying it, then I'm like, come on, bro, stop watching Tic Tac, Patty Sanchez.
Was from a town called Watsonville. Watsonville's percentage, right? It's a town that's about maybe 40,000, 50,000 people, right? But it is 84% Latino. Now, in finding out that Chopo was a Nuestra Familia member and the way he conducted himself and how professional he displayed, man, that was a fucking inspiration for me to sit there and step my game up. And in some senses, I guess you can say he contributed just by his conduct. Me wanting to raise my standards, me wanting to be up to par, me wanting to be able to talk like that.
That's usually happens when you're striving or you're within the gang realm, right? If you see someone that you can emulate or model yourself after, like he's doing it the right way, he's doing it for the reasons that I'm doing it, then you start to conduct yourself in a proud fashion, more in reference to what he's doing, right? So he just used him as an end goal, right? Like an end game goal, like a bucket list goal. Like I want to be like him when I grow up, right? He's doing it the right way. Don't matter if he's black, don't matter if he's brown. The things that he's striving for, what he's saying, the way he's conducting himself and acting, that's what I should be doing. And that's within the gang. Now we all know gangs, man, are a different world, right? And what you really should be doing is getting off your ass and going to work and providing for your family. We all know that. But I'm saying within that life, that was a person to strive after.
Yeah, because I was also seeing some of the meetings that he was running from a distance. Because back then, the Carnales would get in their secret meetings and have discussions, and you could tell that he was demanding his respect, and he was getting his respect. So pretty much Chopo broke me away from the mold of what I thought an NF member was supposed to look like, man. And I learned a lot, like I said, being on that yard, from everybody on that yard. Like I said, a lot of the people that were there were pretty much the inspiration for me to even strive even harder. We used to joke around years later, with Chopo and other people that were different ethnicities, that the NF was an equal opportunity organization. But most definitely, like I said, Chopo from there, man, he kind of disappeared for a while, man. He appeared out of nowhere in Santa Clara County, but he'd been in the feds for a minute, and in the feds you can get lost real quick because in the 90s there wasn't a lot of homeboys in the.
Yeah, in the 90s, Flock was absolutely right. In the 90s, there wasn't a lot of there was Norteños in the feds, but not a lot. And so they didn't really get a foothold into any of the yards, because there was very few of them. And it wasn't until I think the Black Widow indictment, when people were sent to the feds, that they started to get noticed. The Norteño cause, the movement started to be noticed. Now they're deep. Now there's established yards, of Northerners and others. But before then, it wasn't. It wasn't. They weren't a group to be reckoned with. Like it's no one tripped. There wasn't enough of them. You had the Famas and the Latin Kings, and you had other groups. Southsiders have always been deep wherever they go, and they were looked at by the federal system more so as a threat, whereas Norteños, there was very few of them, so they were placed on yards where there wasn't really a threat, and they were able to just do time and languish, and in doing so, they would get lost in the system. That's what Flag was talking about. What happened with Chopo?
feds, you know, and the program wasn't really established yet. I think you had Fish that was there, you had Chopo, you had let me see, Charlie Brown, you had Mad Dog, and just a few homeboys that were spread out, Tarzan, right? But you didn't really have any set established program or facility that was okay. The homeboys are there like they do now, you know. So years later, Chopo appears in our county jail, back from the feds on appeal, and he's been back and forth to the feds a couple times. I think his last case he caught 108 months. I think for a strap was the last case. I don't know if he's out or whatnot, man, but he's done a lot of fed time, and apparently for a minute people thought that he had dropped out because he was basically incommunicado. He wasn't in contact with nobody. You got to remember some of these dudes, right? Like Payaso from fucking Redwood City and other C's used to have channels up to the bay, and their channels were the ones when Operation Black Widow hit. They're the ones that flipped. You know what I'm saying? So there was dudes that literally fell out of contact based upon Operation Black Widow and other things. And so he was.
So with that being said, Chopo was definitely someone who inspired Flaco and a lot of other Norteños, by his conduct. And I know what he's talking about, incommunicado. That means he lost contact with his people. And so dudes just got to live. They got to strive and do what they got to do. Well, I did this video to kind of get a perspective of who Chopo was, because, over the weekend he's passed away, and by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The reason, like I said in the beginning of the video, his own business. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the stories that are out there. There's going to be negative nannies, people that are like Patty Sanchez from Tic Tac that want to fucking just make everything worse, right? So I want to send a big respects to those who knew Chopo de Watson, right? And again, there's going to be people, Gunner, you still wish. I don't wish nothing, man. I know where I stand. But I know about the history of what I was involved in, and I know about certain individuals within that history that deserve, a respect for the sacrifices they made. It doesn't matter how they ended up. It matters on what they were doing. And while I was around, Chopo de Watson was a name that was heard and spoken of well from a lot of real people that I respected. So anyways, he passed away over the weekend, and it just is what it is. There was a little insight, man, from Flaco, the Converse perspective, an old video, man, about his interactions with Chopo de Watson. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly and honestly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. Thank you.